CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest.
Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. Derek Thord here with you today alongside
the one and only Jarza Arlong. And joining us today also is Francisca, right?
Yay! Yes. Happy to be back. Thanks for inviting me back. I love talking about Malazan. So always happy to join in.
Lovely. And your Malazan journey, I know we talked about this just a little bit ago, but for those following and paying attention, you're currently you're done. You're just waiting for No Life Forsaken.
Yeah, I'm done with all the books. I'm just waiting on No Life Forsaken and for Ice to write what is it? The sixth?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's fifth novel in Path to Ascendancy. Every day I'm just waiting on an announcement.
Have you thought about a reread? Maybe that would occupy some of your time.
Well, see, I'm already kind of starting to do that. I've already read Gardens of the Moon again, and I'm in the middle of Dead House Gates currently. But it's been like a very slow, very casual reread, like because I want to read so many of the other books that I've neglected from like reading Malazan for exclusively almost for 2.5 years. So I've just been very casually reading a page or two whenever I have time. I've been reading Dead House Gates almost the entire year. So, but I'm also like putting it off as well because I just know what happens in that book and I haven't read anything from that book since I first read it. So it's like I don't know if I can handle the emotional trauma again, but I'm trying.
I was just going to say the emotional trauma is probably what would keep me at bay as well. So,
yeah. So it's been a slow but like very casual, just fun read. I do plan on rereading The God Is Not Willing before No Life Forsaken comes out again. But I have The God Is Not Willing on audiobook, so I can go through that really, really fast, like when I'm at work or just like going about my day or whatever. So I do plan on doing that before the sequel is released.
Nice.
Cool. I have 2 questions for you, Francisca, and Justin. One will follow through to you as well. What are you currently reading then, aside from Malazan?
Currently, I am reading The Black Company by Glenn Cook. I think is his name. What's his name? Yeah, Glenn Cook. The Black Company, which because I know that The Black Company was was a heavy inspiration for Steven Erikson when he was writing Malazan, and it's a little bit crazy the similarities between the two stories. It is very different, but it is also like you can just kind of like see like the main character in The Black Company in the first one that I'm reading. The guy's name is Croker, like. Like it's kind of like crazy. Like there's some like things like that are just kind of like very similar, and I'm about like I want to say like halfway through that book. And I am also just going to be starting up again the first law. I finished The Blade Itself and Before We Are Hanged, and I'm going to start reading The Last Argument of Kings.
That's a series I've not started yet, but sometime soon I hope to.
It's excellent. It's so good. I love it so much. It's just been like I just recently got a a new position at my job. And so I have been training for it. And I do a lot of my reading at work, actually, because I listen to audiobooks a lot. And so because I'm training, I can't like read as much as I normally do. Because when I come home, I mostly try to write and trying to get my second book finished. And then I try to read maybe like a chapter before bed. But by that time, I'm kind of like reading out like I'm not really paying attention. So I haven't been reading a lot, which is such a bummer. But hopefully once I get like done and trained with this new job that I'll be able to go back to like finally finishing up the Black Company and then starting the last Argument of Kings. So, but it's been kind of like on hiatus for the last couple weeks.
We've been busy then.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, Justin, what else are you reading then?
I'm still slowly making my way through A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I'm like halfway through now. It's pretty good.
Nice.
I think it's actually better than Priory of the Orange Tree, but most people disagree with that. So
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my second question for you was, I was going to ask how your second book is coming along, but you briefly mentioned it. So
Yeah, well, it's going good. I have been really chomping away at it. I am currently at, I think I hit 192,000 words last night.
dang.
So, and I am finally starting to get into the middle of the ending. So it is almost done. I just have to like, I just have to keep forcing myself to keep writing. But it is, I am hopeful that it should be done by the end of this year. Hopefully edited by the end of this year, and I'll be able to have it published at the very least by the beginning of next year. So fingers crossed, but that's kind of like my goal so far. I'm almost there.
Nice. So 192,000 words. What does that roughly translate into like pages?
It's like 630 pages.
Oh, okay. So that's sizable. That's a good sized
Yeah.
book.
And I think I still have a good maybe 20 to 30,000 words to go still, but that's before editing. So once I actually like edit it down, I should be able to shave off that extra 30,000, hopefully.
Well, be waiting for it. I still haven't read your book yet either. It's on the list.
Yeah.
Jan, he's got your book on his nightstand, and he hasn't gotten to it yet either, but he also says hello. So
No worries. Books are there forever. They're infinitely patient.
right.
Mm,
Well,
yeah.
Should we run through the patrons here?
Yeah. So speaking of Jan, we have Jan the Picker, Luciana Tregan, Ryan the Topological, Damien Face in the Rock, Nate Fiddle Me This, Shield Anvil Dylan, Calvin He Who Witnessed, Livia the Malazan Potato, Aaron Mati Regular, Scott the Only, Graceless Passion, Dead Smell, Gestriant, My Own Genesis, Alex the High Mage, Tyler the Great Raven, The Joyful Union, Tony the Watch, and Steve Bottle Cags. Thank you all for your wonderful patronage and joining our little chain of dogs.
Yes, thank you guys. Francesca, not to throw you on the spot, did you want to take the epigraph here for the chapter?
Sure.
This is a little longer one here.
Ototaro, I believe, was born of sorcery. If we hold that magic feeds on hidden energies, then it follows that there are limits to those energies. Sufficient unveiling of power that subsequently cascades out of control could well drain those life forces dry. Further, it is said that the Elder Warrens resist the deadening effect of Ototaro, suggesting that the world's levels of energy are profoundly multi-layered. One need only contemplate the life energy of corporeal flesh compared to the undeniable energy within an inanimate object, such as a rock. Careless examination might suggest that the former is alive, whilst the latter is not. In this manner, perhaps Ototaro is not quite as negating as it would first appear. Musings on the physical properties of the world, Scrysan of Mott. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that.
Uh-huh.
Section 1 from House of Chains, Chapter 22. The 9th, 11th, and 12th squads, medium infantry, had been attached to the Marines of the 9th Company. It was rumored that the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd squads of the heavy infantry would join them to form a discrete fighting unit. None of the new folks entirely unfamiliar to Strings. Weary from interrupted nights, the sergeant and his crew sat around a cook fire, lulled by the incessant roar of the whirlwind 1,000 paces north. Sergeant Balm of the Ninth Squad strode over after directing his soldiers to their new camp. Balm was Dalhanese and had already impressed Strings with his calm demeanor under pressure. His squad had done a fair amount of fighting, and stories of his soldiers made their way through the Legion. The same was true for members of the other two squads. The heavy infantry had yet to do battle, but Strings found himself impressed with their discipline. Balm approached Strings and sat down. They have a brief conversation about people's naming conventions before Strings asked what Balm needed. Balm shrugged and asked what Strings thought about the captain's new units, and that it seemed too late to be doing so. Strings said that it wasn't that new, as Greymane's legions were sometimes set up the same way. In any case, the new fist approved it. Balm said that he wasn't sure about Caneb. Strings asked if he shared that about Captain Renal. Balm explains that he was because Renal was noble-born and Caneb was going to get them all killed. Strings told him to speak louder because not everyone heard that opinion. Balm explained that he didn't need to because everyone shared it. Gessler, Borduke, and the sergeants from the 11th and 12th squads came over and muttered introductions. He observed Moak, sergeant of the 11th, and Tom Tissy, sergeant of the 12th, and their unique characteristics. Moak squinted at Strings for a moment as if in recognition. He pulled a fish spine from his pocket and began picking his teeth with it. He asked if anyone had heard about the killer soldier named Nefarious Red from the heavy infantry. After a few back and forths from the group around the cookfire, Strings points out a Flashwit, a heavy infantry marine, and calls her over. He observes her appearance as she arrives. Strings asked if she knew a soldier by the name of Nefarious. She informed them that she heard he killed 50 raiders, but didn't know which legion he was in. She asked if she could go, as that was all she knew, and that she had to pee. They watched her walk away. After some quick banter about whether she stands up to pee, Balm points out that some heavy infantry were approaching. Mosel, Soblone, and Tug could have been siblings. Mosel approached and he asked which one of them was Strings. Strings introduced himself and asked why he sought him out. Mosel said it was nothing and he was just curious. He pulled the same tactic with Gessler. There was a moment of awkward silence until Tug spoke. He said that he's heard the adjunct was going to the wall tomorrow. He wonders exactly how that worked. He vents that he doesn't understand why they don't just leave Shaik to rot out here. Strings, to prevent the lad from talking anymore, found a good spot to interject before Tug continued his rant. Strings said that the Empire of Sand couldn't be left here because it was a rot and would spread. Strings ended by saying that it wasn't the easiest thing to explain. Gessler piped in and explained that the whirlwind was sorcery, and when the sword and the wall of sand would clash, if the sword fails, then they would go all back home to Aaron. Moak said that this was not what he had heard. When Moak stopped sharing what he had heard, Strings stared at him and asked what rock he's been hiding under. Moak stuck to his guns and said that it made sense. Strings sighed and then straightened. He said that it was all a waste of breath, because sooner than later they'll all be marching in wide-eyed stupid. He strode over to where his squad had set up their tents. His soldiers were gathered around Bottle, who sat cross-legged and appeared to be playing with sticks. Strings halted in his tracks and thought to himself that the lad reminded him of Quick Ben, with Whiskey Jack's squad all around him, performing some risky ritual. Strings could hear faint singing somewhere beyond the camp, singing that sliced through the whirlwind wall. He shook his head and approached. He asked Bottle what he was doing. Bottle looked up with guilt and replied that he wasn't up to much. Cuddle spoke and said that Bottle was trying a divination, but getting nowhere. Strings crouched down and examined the sticks and twigs. He asked where Bottle picked that up, as it was an interesting style. Bottle replied that he had learned it from his grandmother. They got into a short conversation about Bottle's family. Strings got to the point where Bottle was clearly uncomfortable. Strings told him to never mind, but informed the lad that the pattern he had was Earthis aspected, and that he needed more than just what anchors the power. All the others were staring at Strings. Bottle nodded and pulled out a doll made of wooden or woven grasses and wrapped in black cloth. String's eyes widened as he asked who in Hood's name was that supposed to be. Bottle said that it was supposed to be the Hand of Death, but it wasn't cooperating. Strings asked if the lad drew upon the Hood Warren. Bottle admitted that he did a little. Strings couldn't help but think that there was more to this lad than he had thought. Strings said to never mind Hood, as he hovers but doesn't do much until everything is over. For the figure Bottle had made with sticks and twigs, Strings suggested to try the rope. Bottle said that that wasn't a good idea as it was too close. Smiles, off to the side, asked what he meant by that. She states that she thinks it's all a bunch of crap, because he knows Minas, Hood, and witchery. Bottle told her to fuck off, as he had to concentrate. The squad settled down. Bottle placed the doll into the middle of the sticks and twigs, burying the feet in the ground to make it stand. Bottle was visibly concentrating, and after some time he opened his eyes and said that it was no use. Strings asked if it was safe to reach in there. Bottle said that it was. The pattern of sticks on one side was lined in a row, and Strings assumed that this meant to represent the whirlwind wall. He reached in and grabbed the doll and put it on the other side of the sticks and twigs that represented the whirlwind. He told the lad to try again. Bottle stared at him for a moment and then began. The whirlwind wall began to waver, and a few sticks toppled. A gasp was heard from the onlookers. Bottle said that the doll was not moving, but he could feel the rope close. The doll wasn't moving, but Strings told him, while he was correct, to look closer at the doll's shadow, as that was moving. Cuddle was dumbfounded and started to get creeped out by the magic and stormed off to bed. The divination ended suddenly. Bottle looked around and asked why it was his shadow that only moved. Strings stood and said that it was because Shadow wasn't ready yet. Smiles asked Strings if that meant it was the rope himself. Bottle answered that it wasn't, and he was sure of that. Bottle strode from the group, and in his mind he told himself that Fiddler strode from the group, and in his mind he told himself that it wasn't someone better. He thought to himself that he was here, and he was on the other side of the whirlwind. He knows exactly who this person has sharpened his knife for. Now, only if that damn singing would stop. I don't know why I struggled with that.
So I have plenty of those moments. It's all right.
I guess my first thought, and now that, I read the chapter again this morning, and my first comment was this whole to form a discrete fighting unit. It's funny because the last section is talking about the first section. So this is kind of the culmination of Renal going about and, copying or mirroring Greymane's strategy. So that's what all of this is about. It's an interaction of those companies now forming. But I kind of wonder where or how this discrete companies will more or less change or not change the outcome.
I maybe have some thoughts, Justin, but maybe we can talk about that later.
All right. Well, then we'll move on.
I just think it's funny that Erickson named Fiddler Strings, which is like the least subtle name he's ever given one of his Malazan characters. They're always so obscure and like out of like the realm of like there is no possible way you could like recognize this person just by their name. Like, because Erickson really likes to give all of his characters, 5 different names to go by. I mean, when you think about like in Memories of Ice and who Chashin was the entire time, you're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And then you come to Strings and immediately you're like, oh yeah, it's Finn.
Right. Yeah.
You can't. And I just think it's funny. But like, I'm coming from like, I haven't reread House of Chains since I first read it. So like most of my thoughts here are just like, I'm just happy to be back with this squad. Cause I'm like in Dead House Gates mode as well, where like you don't see a lot of like the Marines. You just, you're with the chain of dogs the entire time. So I was like reading this chapter and I'm like, oh, just I miss my Marines so much. So this was like kind of like a joy to read. So when I saw Strings again, I was like, oh, this is so funny.
And it's funny because, like, while we, the reader, totally can draw that connection, it's funny how the characters in the book, like are completely oblivious to it.
Yeah, totally.
I didn't really think about that, but yeah, it does check out. Like, you'd think that would be obvious, but maybe to them it's not.
Right. And, speaking of names, we get another Patreon name here with Dead Smell. When I think he joined or they joined sometime in Memories of Ice. And I'm like, what the hell is a dead smell? And so it's just kind of cool to like when we read Joyful Union, like I had no idea that was something from this book either. Yeah, it was just really kind of cool. It was cool.
No, I had the same thoughts as you. It was like, I didn't know if Dead Smell was something Malazan related or not. And
I wonder if Dead Smell, if we'll get like an elaboration, kind of similar to that guy in Memories of Ice. His name was Toes or something like that, and he had like toe trophies. Yeah,
he cut off the big toes or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so that they couldn't chase him or something like that. So I'm curious as to what Dead Smell is coming from. Like, does he rub himself in corpses, or like, what does that mean? Is that his deodorant of choice?
I don't know, the way that Malazans work are just like the way that they name themselves is just it could literally be anything. It could be anything. Like I mean, just like a quirk or something, like something very obscure could just, and then that's their name for the rest of their lives.
Right. And then you had a thought about Greymane here. Speaking of
I did.
interesting names,
I haven't when I was reading the chapter, I heard Greymane's name drop, and I was like, I was like, whoa, that is a name I haven't heard in a while. But like, I didn't fully realize that name was dropped in Malazan Book of the Fallen. Like, I know that it, like, in my head, I know it was like he was like mentioned, but you really don't get to know the guy until novels of the Malazan Empire. And so like seeing his name dropped in this like so casually, knowing what happens like with his character and like what's going on in novels of the Malazan Empire is like wild. Like I saw his name and I was like, whoa, they're just like casually talking about this guy and don't really know, like they don't really know what's going on with him. They're adopting his strategies and stuff, and I just think it was very interesting. I just thought it was I liked reading how they thought of him compared to what he thinks of himself in the other series. So it's very interesting to me.
We might have to keep that in mind. Sorry.
Does he show up pretty early in the Ice books?
Oh gosh, it's been so long since I've read them. I think he does. I think he is more prevalent in Stonewielder, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. However, Stonewielder is like the one that is most prevalent in my brain because Stonewielder is my favorite of the series. But he is definitely in Stonewielder, and I think he might be. No, okay. I don't think he's in the first one, and maybe he's not in the second one. I can't remember if he's in the second one, but I know he's in the third one.
Okay. Because I think after we read Midnight Tides, we'll read which one's first, Night of Knives or
Night of Knives, yeah.
Yeah, Night of Knives is first, and then Return of the Crimson Guard, and then it's Stonewielder.
Gotcha.
But he is definitely in Stonewielder.
We got a little time to get there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see like that other side because like I'm clearly getting what side Erickson is focusing on and then also what side Ice is focusing on. So I'm really interested to see that other side. So I'm excited to get there.
Yeah, with my current reread, I am trying to read novels of the Malazan Empire at the same time as Malazan Book of the Fallen, whereas when I first read Malazan Book of the Fallen, I didn't read the Ice books until afterwards. So before I started Gardens of the Moon again, I read Night of Knives, and then I went into Gardens of the Moon, and then now I'm into Deadhouse Gates. And then once I reach, I think the Bone Hunters is when Return of the Crimson Guard becomes like, that's when the timelines match, is after the Bone Hunters, if I'm not mistaken. But that's what I'm trying to do with my reread now, because when I reread Night of Knives, I was like, whoa, so much here that I didn't notice before because I hadn't like really like I hadn't like gone through like everything that I had already known at that point, finishing the entire series. So it's a cool experience when you actually like read everything and then reread everything, because then it becomes a completely new experience with like all the things that you had missed and stuff. So it's cool. It's cool.
Nice. We got that to look forward to.
Next thought. This part where Moat and Strings are kind of arguing about their opinions about Kaneb and Branal. I was a little unsure in the book who exactly Strings was coming to the defense of. I feel like it's Kaneb, and I just kind of imagined Fiddler or Strings getting quite irritated at this conversation, because it seems like everybody has such a low opinion of Kaneb, but also I feel like the Renal, everyone has a lower opinion of Renal, because at the end, Kaneb takes Renal's position back. So I couldn't quite differentiate who was for who and who was, against what.
I think probably Strings was just kind of like maybe fed up with everybody's like opinion of like, oh, we're all gonna get killed and everything, and he's just like, I don't really want to hear it anymore from anybody. And then like probably about both Renal and Kaneb, that it's just kind of funny when Baum is like, well, everybody's thinking it, so like I'm just saying it kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's fair. Everybody shares the same, and Strings is just like, you know what,
Like I'm
I just
not,
don't wanna,
yeah, like I'm not saying anything that's untrue. I'm not saying anything that no one else is thinking. I'm just saying it.
Right. And that's fair, and that probably explains before he leaves this conversation. He's like, whatever, we're all walking in wide-eyed stupid, so what's it
Yeah,
matter? Yeah. Okay, that
yeah.
part makes more sense. So okay. And then you had a thought about him picking his teeth. So
Like I said, I haven't been with the Marines in a while, and so the fact that he pulled out a fish spine from his pocket and picked his teeth with it in front of everybody, and everyone's like, okay. I just think they're so funny because it kind of like it goes into what I was saying before, how like that's probably why he got into the Marines in the first place. Like when he went to go like get recruited or sign up or whatever, and the guy's like, "So what's your deal?" And he's like, "Oh, I picked my teeth with fish fine." And he's like, "Cool, weird. We'll take you. It's fine." Like, it's just I love how everybody has different characteristics that make them unique, and that kind of becomes their entire personality. And so it just I just really like it. It makes the being with the Marines so much fun, and why they're probably like my favorite people to hang out with when I'm reading the books.
They are quite the group of characters, that is for sure.
my next thought, which I thought was more just kind of, there's the theme of three again, right? Like we have these three siblings. It kind of made it seem like they were related, but at the same time not. So I'm not quite sure, but it's kind of playing into my theory about the light, dark, and shadow elder races, as well as the Parans. We get a lot of these types of themes in this book, so I'm just more or less pointing it out. What it means or what it does, I don't know. It caught my eye.
To be honest, I do not remember these characters, so I couldn't tell you.
Hey, that's also
I saw
confirmation.
I saw your comment, and I was like, I can't remember these people.
Well, there's a lot of characters to try to remember, so
There's
I
so
think
many. I can't. Like half of what's going on in this chapter, I'm like, I think I remember, but I don't really remember. Like a lot of the characters, like I remember the important ones, but like a lot of the other like smaller time Marines that are going, like like the guy who was like picking his teeth with this fish spine. Like I was like, I don't remember you. I feel like I should because you seemed like fun, but
Looks like you had a thought about the rot.
yeah, I don't know. I really like how they're calling Shaik a rot, right? And like, what do we do when we like something is rotten? We have to throw it away because it does. It spreads. And I don't know. I liked that description as I was reading it. I was just like, oh, that's a nice little like comparison, simile, whatever you want to call it. That they can't just like leave her on, this land to like, because yeah, it's like they might take care of her, but what about her followers and stuff? And like, because that'll spread. And so, like, I don't know. Enjoyed the way that Erickson described that in a very simple way, in a way that is like within like a sentence that doesn't require, 3 paragraphs to talk about it. Just, he says it very neat and tidy with just rotten spread.
Hmm. Yeah, I would agree. It makes sense because, as you said, when something rots, you throw it away. And that's exactly what they're trying to do with Shaik here.
I was thinking more like you said like rot, and I thought of like diseased like flesh, and all I could think of was you gotta cut that out. You gotta. I mean, it's. I guess it's still the same thing. You get rid of it, you throw it away, but just. I was thinking body parts. I guess maybe I'm just a little more dark. I don't know.
Well, it's the same concept. Like if you got like
Yeah.
gangrene or something like that, like you can't like really heal that kind of like injury. Like you have to cut out that type of corruption. And so it makes sense. It's the same thing, just a little bit more darker, a little bit more morbid, a little bit more
Yeah.
Malazan.
Guess I can fit in.
A little more Malazan indeed. All right. So there's this part in the section where Moak and Gessler are kind of talking about what happens if they're unable to breach the whirlwind, right? Part of the conversation is they're speculating that they're supposed to go to Irliton and Gijanispan to wait for Dujek and Tashrin, and that they'd even heard that Greymane would be called back from his war. And I just kind of wonder, like, how much truth is in that? I mean, obviously, we know what happens throughout this chapter, so the speculation probably isn't true. But I'm kind of wondering, like, okay, well, could we apply this to events maybe after the end of this book? Is that potentially where we will see these guys go at the conclusion of the book?
I think to me, it's just soldiers talking, right? Like if they're not fighting, all they got time for is just bullshitting with each other. And somebody probably just started this rumor, right? And now it's spreading, but maybe not too. I don't know.
I think it's also a good example of how the adjunct doesn't really talk to anybody, right? She keeps to herself. Tavaret, she keeps what she knows close at hand. She doesn't really talk to her general. She doesn't really talk to her soldiers. She just kind of like knows what she needs to do, and she uses the tools, which is like her army, to get what needs to be done. And just because she's not talking to anybody doesn't mean that the soldiers aren't going to talk, and they're not going to spread rumors, and they're not going to try to find their own reasons for things. And that's why, everyone's like, we're just going to die. Like, we don't know what's going on. We're just going to die. So, and it just kind of like, I don't know, it feels like a very realistic way writing this army and how they talk to each other and how they're trying to justify themselves being there, but also like trying to come to terms with it as well, and like try to figure out what's going on without knowing all of the information that Tavaret probably knows.
I feel like that makes sense. Just thought about Quick Ben with Whiskey Jack's squad all around him. 2 things, Derek. One, I'm not falling for it. I've already have enough Kukumemi Quick Ben theories that I'm not going to fall for it this time. But the second thing is that, you know how Kalam was walking out of that basin and he saw those like ghost soldiers from like the First Empire or whatever?
Yes.
I'm also kind of wondering if maybe Fiddler, I think that we could all agree that Fiddler and Kalam are tasked with taking out the whirlwind at this point, and they're hearing this song that sounds gross. It's not pretty at all, that he's seeing a vision from past Raraku, something that he witnessed in Raraku, which was Quick Ben and Whiskey Jack's squad all huddled around each other doing some type of divination in Raraku. Like, we know that they've been there before. So I think that it was more like a flashback, but not really like in his mind. It was more like an outwardly projection of a flashback, similar to Kalam experiencing that memory.
All right. So he's doing this. He's got his little divination thing, and Fiddler moves this hand of death from like one side of the whirlwind to the other. I guess I was confused when he was first trying it. Was it outside the whirlwind and then he moved it in, or was it the other way around?
I think it was outside, and then he moved it in.
Gotcha.
But I don't know.
Okay. It wasn't, to me, I read the chapter again this morning too, and it didn't feel very clear to me, or I'm not remembering clearly anyways.
Well, Strings asked if he could put his hand inside, and then he moved it outside. So I think it started inside, and then he moved it outside of the.
Okay.
Yeah, because the divination, I think, inside of the divination is like it trying to penetrate the whirlwind, and anything outside of it would be what's in the whirlwind. I don't know. Like that's just the way that my mind.
That makes a little bit more sense, though. But I did not reread the chapter before we started chatting, so.
Just going straight off the memory, huh?
And well, I did read it. It was just earlier in the week that I read it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but I didn't like refresh my memory because I think I read it on like Monday.
Gotcha. Okay, brave of you.
I'm trying.
How did that feel opening up the fourth book and going to a chapter
Whatever.
near the end, and you're just like,
I know,
I'm
it
gonna
felt
read
really
here.
weird. It felt really weird. I was like, I felt a little bit unequipped because I was like, gosh, I don't remember half of this stuff.
Well, thanks
But,
for doing it anyways, though.
I know. Well, any chance that I can. I told you, I'm crazy. I just really like talking about Malazan. Even if it's just like the themes that I think are going on in the chapter, or just like, like what I was saying with like the name Strings and the guy who picks his teeth with the fish spine. Like I just like them. Like so
It's good. It's good stuff.
yeah. But I did enjoy also like this part of the chapter where Strings is like kind of putting his hand into like what Bottle is doing and like giving him advice and stuff on his like sorcery and everything. And it's just like this friendly reminder that Fid has like this little touch of divination in him, that he had like this a little bit of a stronger sixth sense than the non mages or whatever, which I think is just I liked this little reminder, and like how I like how Fid reacts to it. He's just like so like, oh, I have to do this, like like I have to help Bottle, but he doesn't really like want to very much because Fid is not doesn't like that part of himself, and so it just I liked the interaction here with Bottle and Fid having to like overcome like how uncomfortable he is about it and still try to like help out,
For sure.
Yeah. It caters to his leadership and his experience, and I think that's what draws us to this character.
Yeah.
There is a very small part of me that doubts, and you guys are probably gonna make fun of me, but that maybe this is setting it up to be Quick Ben, and I'm just like so traumatized by all of my past guesses that I'm like doubting this one. So, just saying.
I don't have anything to add.
You suck, Derek. Come on. The whole doll thing, I know that like it's supposed to be a representation of the hand of death. So if I'm creating this thing to be used with sorcery, and I have this intended purpose, I guess I'm not understanding how it can just switch from being the hand of death to the rope. Like, what is the doll's purpose in this divination? Obviously, the twigs and the sticks are the anchor, right? So that like the divination can actually like, is the doll supposed to be the penetration? Is it, you know what I mean? Like these are just the things that I think about in trying to understand the magic system.
I don't know if I have a good answer for it, but I just kind of felt like it's supposed to be like a vessel. It isn't necessarily
Think of that.
a representation of Hood specifically or the rope specifically.
I think I could be very wrong about this because, like I said, I have not read this book since I first read it, and I've also only read this chapter once on Monday. To me, it seems like the doll is representative of who is playing the game, who is they're trying to figure out, kind of like playing like the deck of dragons, right? Where they're trying to figure out which gods are here. And I think that's what Bottle is trying to do. He's trying to figure out like who else is in this war with the whirlwind? Who else has got their grubby little hands in here trying to make a difference? And so that's kind of, I think, the reason why he's saying, oh, it's Hood. No, it's the rope. And then like, no, it's not the rope. And they're trying to figure out who it is. I could be wrong about that, but that's what it seems like to me, especially when they were talking about how like the doll's shadow itself was moving, but not the doll itself, which feels like it feels very like, oh, the rope or shadow throne. It could be either one of them with that, so like it Sid finally saying, like he knows exactly who this person is, but like doesn't say it out loud, and we have to like and then we have to figure it out for ourselves, like from the clues that Erickson has dropped, who this person could be. So that's what it feels like to me. But like I said, I could be wrong about that.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, like picking a game character that best represents what you need to accomplish. It's not Hood because while, as Strings was saying, while, yes, he's here, but he's not really going to come in until after, right? So he's not a good choice. So try the rope, right?
They're trying to feel out the vibes to see which god is here trying to make a difference in this whirlwind.
Yeah. Which just makes me think, because in last chapter, we found out during Cutter and Apslar's conversation that Kellenved was or is currently sitting on the first throne, right? Whether that goes away when you die or not, we're a little uncertain, but that's not where I'm going. And that he used to control the Talani Mass. So I'm almost kind of wondering if the whirlwind is very upset and rageful enough to not be constrained by the Talani Mass ritual, that now she just seeks vengeance upon the Malazan Empire, even though Kellenved isn't the emperor anymore.
Don't tell him that.
Right. It's just interesting, this Kellenved and the whirlwind, like, I don't know, I feel like they're connected some way, but I just can't put my finger on it, I know that you were talking about the doll and the shadow. Did you have more on that? Because
Oh no,
I feel
that
like
was
okay. I just feel like it naturally progressed there, so I wanted to make sure that like you had said what you wanted to say.
Yeah.
Because the comments are more a reminder for me, so like talk about this. So yeah. My last thought is this person, right? We know from previous chapters that Kalam has infiltrated the whirlwinds. We know that he's like an agent of shadow, which would explain why the doll's shadow is moving, because the rope, as it represents the character, is not ready, but the shadow is moving, which means like pieces are in place or getting there. We also know that Cutter and Apsalar are Arnbarku, they're hanging out with Boost. So it kind of seems like all of the game pieces are coming together. I guess my only question is like it specifically says that Fiddler knows exactly who Kalam has sharpened his knife for. And that's the part where like I can't recall anything in this book that alludes to, outside of the whirlwind, who he wants to kill. So that's what I'm a little like curious about and excited to find out about.
I don't recall any specifics either.
So,
and I'm not sure who his like number one target would be.
Because it almost seems like Fiddler is deducing that there's purpose. And I didn't get that sense. I just kind of feel like he's helping out Shadow Throne. Yeah, that was all that I had. I'm ready to move on if you all are.
I think you had one more thought, Francesca, unless you kind of grouped it in with whatever else we were talking about.
Did I? No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay. He stood in the darkness, under siege. Voices came from all sides, pounding at his skull. It wasn't enough that he was responsible for the deaths of the soldiers. Now their spirits screamed at him, ghostly hands reaching from beyond Hood's gate to claw their way through his brain. Gamet wanted to die. He felt he was worse than useless. He had been a liability and now rode in the ranks of all the other incompetent commanders who left a trail of blood behind them, becoming the worst fear for the common soldier. It had been driving him crazy, and he understood now. The voices he heard, the uncertainty he felt, how he was always cold no matter how hot it was outside, the weakness he felt in his limbs. Gamet realized he was broken and he had failed the adjunct in his very first test. He thought that Keneb would be okay. He was a good choice to be Fist, not too old or young, and he had a family, people he would fight for, fight to get back to. The same could not be said of Gamet, and he thought those things mattered. Continuing to think to himself, he thought that she, and I'm assuming Tavor, never needed him. The family tore itself apart, and there was nothing he could do about that. He was only a glorified house guard, just following orders. Even a word from him could have changed Felson's fate, but he just saluted and said, "Yes, mistress." Gamet knew he had a weak spirit, and there were plenty of times for his flaws and failures to shine. Even if she saw those moments as loyalty and the discipline to accept orders no matter how bad the outcome. There was a new voice. It said one word. Gamet blinked and looked down and found Grub. Half naked and filthy, he repeated his word again. Loud! Gamet said they were loud, and he wondered what the kid was doing up so late since it was nearly dawn. Grub said no. It was loud. Gamet didn't understand what the child meant. All he heard was voices. Grub told him the sandstorm was loud. It roars. Gamet looked around and realized he was only 50 paces away from the wall of the storm and the sound of sand running over rocks and everything else. It sounded like voices, screaming, angry voices. He told Grub he was not mad. Grub said he wasn't either. He was happy, and his father had a new ring on his arm. He's supposed to give more orders, but he actually gives less. But he is still happy, and the ring is shiny. Does Gamet like shiny things? Even though it hurts his eyes, he still likes it. Gamet told Grub he doesn't think too much of anything anymore. Grub said he thinks too much, and father feels the same way. Gamet thinks about things that there is no point in thinking about, but it doesn't matter. Grub knows why he does this. Gamet asked Grub if this was so. Grub said yes. It's the same reason he likes shiny things. His father was looking for Gamet, so he was going to tell his father he found him. Grub disappeared into the dark. Gamet turned to look at the wall. It was hungry. Had always been so, but something new had arrived, but he didn't know what it was. It seemed to be urgency, a tone fraught with something. Gamet wondered what he was doing here, then it all came back to him. He was looking for death, perhaps a raider's blade across his throat, quick and sudden, if not completely random, an end to those thoughts that hurt his eyes. Kind of a sad little section here when he's just, I guess he's feeling kind of sorry for himself or something, but I think Gamet he's just being too hard on himself. Like, yeah, he got people killed, probably more than he wants, but that's just kind of one of the things that happens when you're in a leadership role in the military, and no one wants their soldiers to die, but that's the name of it sometimes. Like, that's what a soldier does. They fight and sometimes they die. But I think it shows, like, he's got all this heart. Like, I think he's exactly what I think of when I think of like a reluctant hero. And I think he's going to play a big role in this battle to come. And I'm kind of hoping he's going to get a shot to redeem himself.
Yeah, Gambit he's in his feels. Poor guy. He's espresso depresso currently. He just he is really feeling sorry for himself, and like you can kind of understand why, like because he did get like a bunch of people killed and stuff. And correct me if I'm wrong because I can't quite remember, but I know it said that he was a glorified house guard, but he really was like house guard for the parents, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he really was. So he wasn't like on the battlefield for like a while prior to this. So him coming to the battlefield in this like new like a role that he hasn't adopted in so long, it's not like you can just pick up the sword without, if you haven't practiced with your sword in years, you're not going to come onto the battlefield and beat the best swordsman of all time, right? So like it's kind of the same concept where like he's been this glorified house guard for so long, comes out onto the battlefield to be this leader, and it's not like you can just snap your fingers and become that. It takes experience, it takes losses, it takes wins, it takes all of that. And so him just like feeling bad because he got it wrong the first time, is very upsetting, obviously, but also it's like get it together here. We don't have time for this, okay?
Mhm.
Like everyone here is not having a good time. You're not alone in that, okay?
Yeah.
This is not the first time anyone has ever felt this before. You are nothing special, Gamet. I love you. You're nothing special about this. But like you could still empathize with like what he's doing and everything, especially with his role, like with like Fellison and everything, because everybody who was involved, every single person who was involved with the whole Fellison thing, they're all worse off. Every single one of them. They all got their comeuppance like, with like just how they're doing currently, right, in the story. And so it just kind of like, I don't know, I think about that and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was pretty rough for everybody involved, for sure. I don't know. It's hard to think sometimes that there's this overarching plan behind all of it, like with the intent of what was supposed to happen, and then it just isn't what happened.
Oh yeah, no, everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong. Like it just like it couldn't have gone more wrong. Like their intentions were obviously good, but there's that common phrase where like good intentions are what's that phrase? Best intentions are paved with bad decisions, something like that. I don't know. I can't
Hmm.
remember now. Forget I ever said that. But
The only one I know is the road to hell's paved with good intentions or something.
yeah, okay, maybe that's the one I was thinking of. Like everyone had good intentions and they were planning on not letting things go as far as they did, but they did and everything just I think it was a terrible plan in the first place. It was a bad plan. But anyways, I digress. It's just like it just makes sense in my brain where like any pretty much everybody who was involved with Fellison's fate, especially in House of Chains where we're being where it's like the two sisters, right, in this book. So it makes sense that you would kind of brush on like the people who were involved in like what happened to her and how life is treating them currently.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that. And that's really interesting that you bring that up. And now I'm like thinking about everybody was involved, and I'm like, yeah, it's like 100% true.
Yeah, everyone's having a terrible time. No one came out of
Mhm.
that unscathed.
Nope, not at all.
So
Yeah, that's cool.
You got a couple more thoughts here? I don't, and then I've got one more
yeah,
on
I
this
did.
section. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
go for it. Take it.
I really like the whirlwind. I think the whirlwind is so cool. I just think that it's very reminiscent to me of like when you watch Lord of the Rings and Peter Jackson kind of like zooms in on the ring and it's whispering to you and it feels like a thing. It feels like a being, like a person. And um that's the way Erickson writes the whirlwind in a way, which it is because the whirlwind is basically it's just this goddess. But it's interesting how it is a storm that feels like a person, and I just think that's really cool how he personifies it in the books. And so I just think it's cool, like with it sounded like voices screaming, angry voices, and you're just like you can hear it so clearly in your head while seeing this massive wall of stand, and it's just kind of scary, and I like it.
Yeah, it's funny how, just thinking back about the whirlwind, like even back to Dead House Gates, there's very little personification. But as you go throughout this book, it progresses even more and more and more and more. So I just thought it was a very cool, not transition, but like progression.
Yeah, Erickson is really good at doing that, where he leaves crumbs for you in previous books to where you're like, I know this is coming. I'm not entirely sure what this is, but I know it's important, and I know that it's going to be a thing. And then once you actually get to the thing, it's like, whoa, this is way, way bigger and way more dangerous than I thought it was going to be. Like when you're reading the Gardens of the Moon, and they're just casually mentioning the Pandion Domin, all of that, and then you get to Memories of Ice, and you're like, oh, this is like a horde. Like you're like, this is like the worst war ever. and you don't like really like realize it until you actually get to the grit and potatoes of it in Memories of Ice. But Erickson is really good at like leaving those little crumbs from Gardens of the Moon and a little bit in Dead House Gates, but then really in Dead House Gates you get like those crumbs of the whirlwind and stuff, and then you get like the really like big whirlwind in House of Chains, and you're like, oh, this is bigger than I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah,
So,
it's cool.
the only time that I would say that I enjoy being led on.
Cool. Yeah.
Wow, that fell flat.
And then-
Okay.
Yeah, I was saying,
Bad
didn't quite
joke.
land there, Justin.
Oh boy, all right. I will edit that one out. Did not land. Write that down. Shit.
I didn't quite understand what you were trying to say. And then by the time I understood it, it was like it took too long, and then I was like, oh, I don't know what to do.
No, I mean that's still failure, so it's fine. And like this Lanny Mass, failure is unacceptable. So
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, on that note, I just had like another comment where I love that Grub calls Kidnap dad, where he says my father. I just think it's really sweet, even though he hasn't talked to Kidnap yet, which saddens me. But it's kind of cool that he like talks to other people and refers to Kidnap as his dad. And I just like that. I'm such a sucker for like a father and son or any type of parental relationship between a child that is not like their biological kid, and they think of each other as like, that's my child, that's my parent, and I just feels a little hole in my heart.
It's just kind of like a small little victory, just as a small little moment of happiness where we don't, there's a lot of dark and not happy in this series.
Yeah.
So it's funny because, my canon is your canon, but there's a small part of like the devil advocate in me that almost kind of wonders if he's hallucinating, if he's having some type of like existential crisis, like he's just waiting to be killed, maybe like his adrenaline is like high, like the whirlwind is screaming. I can get like a very ethereal sense based on the way he describes the whirlwind, that maybe, and the fact that Kaneb, his closest person to Grub, doesn't talk to him. He hears that Grub talks to everyone else. I don't know. It just made me think, like, what if Gamet is hallucinating here? Because how does Grub tell Kaneb where Gamet is if he doesn't talk to him?
Well, he said he didn't.
So I'm just saying that, like, is Grub a figment of his imagination, and what he's hoping for is his last breath?
I don't know. I
don't think that this is the case. There's a small part of me that's like curious if this is maybe a way to interpret Grub here.
Gotcha.
Because he gives him a revelation, which you're going to talk about in just a little bit, about the shiny thing.
Yeah, I think comparing the shiny thing to kind of like overthinking, I think it's a way to be distracted, right? So where he's not, I don't know, he gets so lost in his own thoughts. Maybe he doesn't, at that point in time, he doesn't think of himself as a failure. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just like shiny things, they catch your eye, they distract you. And, you know,
But they
if,
also hurt Grubb's eyes. So he's associating the shiny thing to Gamet's thoughts. The more Gamet thinks, the more he hurts. The more Grubb looks at the shiny thing, the more his eyes hurt. So I think that what Grubb is intentionally doing is offering Gamet the realization that, like, when I overthink or when I think, I'm hurting myself, and I need to stop doing that. So therefore, it hurts my eyes.
I think you were better with the words that I was trying to say.
Okay. Okay, cool. There's more than one way to explain it, so.
I think that was everything I had on this section. Is there anything either of you two would like to add, or anything else we want to talk about?
No.
Not at all.
All right.
All right. The sound of horse hooves awoke him once more, and he turned to see two riders emerge from the gloom. Keneb explained that they had been looking for him for half the night. Tamol had a third of the Wiccans out searching for him. Gamet told Keneb that Grubb had no issue finding him, and was going to tell Keneb. The man snorted and revealed that Grubb had yet to speak with him, but he's heard rumors that his child talks with others, and he doesn't know why. He shifts the conversation to say that they've brought Gamet's horse, as the adjunct is ready. Gamet asked what they were getting ready for. Keneb said that the adjunct would draw her sword on the whirlwind. Gamet said that she didn't need him for that. Captain Keneb said that this was true, but she chose to anyway. Gamet thought to himself that he didn't want to. Keneb reinforced that she had commanded it. Gamet sighed and walked over to his horse and mounted it. He felt weak, but eventually, after getting situated, he told the pair to lead on. They traveled east parallel to the whirlwind until they approached a party of 5. The adjunct, Tene, Baralta, Blistig, Nil, and Nether. Sudden fear gripped Gamet, and he warned the adjunct that there could be thousands of warriors on the other side. He panics and says that they need to prepare the army and get them here. Tavor told him to knock it off and asked if he could not hear the whirlwind shriek of fear. He stared up and reassured himself that this is what he had heard before. He said that it knows the barrier will fail. Nether is heard saying that the goddess knows. Gamet looked at the warlocks. They looked miserable and seemed like they would never come out of that state. He asked what will happen when the whirlwind fails. Nil answered for his sister and said that the whirlwind enclosed a warren. When the wall is destroyed, the warren becomes breached and the goddess becomes vulnerable. It was explained that if they had a squad of mages, they could hunt her down and kill her. Because they couldn't make that a reality, the army of the apocalypse will remain strengthened by her power. Those soldiers will never break, will fight to the bitter end. The adjunct said that his predictions of disaster were not helping, and to accompany her to the wall. They rode closer to the whirlwind. She dismounted and walked closer. Her sword was halfway unsheathed when there was sudden silence. The adjunct turned around. Shock lined her face. Nil shouted that the whirlwind withdrew, and their path was clear. Tavor asked if this was because of her sword, or was it a ploy of some kind? Nil speculates that it was actually both, and she should not willingly take a wound, as she would not willingly take a wound, and therefore would rely on her mortal army. Gamet sighed in relief, as there was no waiting army on the other side. The adjunct got back on her horse and ordered Tamul to send scouts up ahead. She stated that she believed there would be no more raids, and that they simply waited in place for their own choosing. It's up to the Malazans to find. Gamet thought to himself that at that time there would be a battle and the death of hundreds or thousands. Adjunct versus Shaik is nothing more than a clash of wills. He thought to himself that he wanted nothing to do with this. Tene drew up alongside Gamet and told the High Fist that they needed him, as the adjunct needed a cautious voice. Gamet replied that it was a coward's voice, and the adjunct didn't need that. Tene said that there was a fog to battle. Gamet interrupted to say that he knows that fog as he was a soldier once. Peralta told him very well, and to approach the adjunct as if he were a common soldier. Blistig rode up on the other side and added that they haven't had a chance to advise the adjunct, as they don't know what she's thinking. Blistig added that the adjunct to war has made this war personal, ignoring Malazan military doctrine. Gamet studied the adjunct and studied the broken hills that lay beyond, where the army of the apocalypse was waiting for them. He questioned to himself the word personal, and remembered that she has always conducted herself that way. Gamet told both Tene and Blistig that the Empress chose Tabor not because she was ignorant to Tabor's character. Tene growled that they would be walking into a carefully constructed trap. Gamet informed that she is not unaware of those possibilities. Inside his head, he asks for both of them to leave, to just go find Kaneb. Gamet said that they must march to meet the Apocalypse army. What else could they do? Blistig tells Gamet that she should listen to them, and rattles off of a few other strategies. Gamet retorts that Corbolo Dom has likely thought of all of those scenarios. Every waterhole would be fouled, and they'd march through Waraku until there was no one left. He caught both of them locking eyes. He assured them that when the time is right, there would be a council of war. Tene said that there better be one, and then rode off. Blistig spat and told Gamet then that when this council took place, that he better be there. Gamet wondered what would happen if he wasn't. Blistig said that there was enough baggage on this train with the nobles grieving or listing their grievances. He admits that he didn't think much of Gamet, but over time he managed his legion well. Gamet rebutted that this was until his first night fighting the enemy. Blistig tells Gamet that it was because he rode into a skirmish instead of staying back and managing messengers and relaying orders and seeing the battle from a viewpoint from up high. If a fist is engaged in a battle, they are useless, because they're obligated to save your skin. Gamet considered Blistig's words, and then said it didn't matter, as Kaneb was fist now. Blistig said that Kaneb is acting fist until Gamet can return. Gamet said that he wasn't going to. Blistig called Gamet a bastard, and not that Kaneb was bad, but there's a noble born in Kaneb's captain role, and he was a damned fool. He tells Gamet that he needs to return things to the proper order. Gamet asked how he knew about the captain. Blistig explained that Kaneb had told him, and that the officer pool the adjunct had to pool from was noble-born, and despite the call, the whole system was a private enterprise that was corrupt. He tells Gamet to quit being a bitch and fall back in line. Gamet struck Blistig with the back of his hand. The adjunct reined in and was staring at him. Spitting blood, Blistig stood. Gamet rode his horse to the adjunct and said that he was ready to return to duty. Tavor, arching an eyebrow, said that this was good, but the next time, take their disagreements elsewhere. Gamet glanced back at Blistig, who was dusting himself off, but a grim smile on his face. Gamet thought that he owed the lad a free punch. The adjunct said to inform Kaneb. Gamet nodded and asked if he could have another conversation with Blistig. The adjunct said of course, but wished that he would be less dramatic than the last one. I guess my first thought for this section is this thought that because they couldn't make that a reality. Oh, yeah, when they're talking about hunting down the goddess and killing her, they obviously don't have enough sorceress power or manpower or woman power to pursue the goddess. Having her stand down is actually kind of strategic for her because she can still give power to her mortal army. And I wonder if that is what is going to potentially draw out this fight, because it's saying that the soldiers will never break, they will fight to the bitter end, which to me kind of makes it seem like they may not be strategic, but they have a lot of strength. They're hard to kill, I guess is what I'm saying. They're not your average run-of-the-mill soldiers. They're leveled up, I guess, a little bit in gaming terms. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe this is where Kalam and Fiddler come in, where, they're tasked with taking out the whirlwind. So maybe the battle will be, I guess I'm just reminded of Star Wars, where young Anakin drives into the Naboo starfighter trade block ship and destroys the ship, and then all of the droids shut down type thing.
Love to read and find out, Justin.
Yes.
Yeah.
But didn't you have a theory about this? Sorry.
I do. Francesca, if you want to take your thought, then I can go into that after, maybe, Justin.
Yeah, that's fine. I just this is just another example, like when Tabaret when she walks up and she takes her sword halfway out, and then you're like all excited and you're like, oh my gosh, something crazy is about to happen. And then the whirlwind just like breaks apart and disappears. And it just it's Ericsson's way of averting your expectations of this big, massive like battle or something or one-on-one that's going to happen, and then just saying, nope, never mind, we're gonna save that. And I just think like as cool as it would have been to see Tabaret fight a wall of sand, it's a cool way of showing how you were saying that like this goddess has a mind. She's not stupid, and she is thinking strategically. So yeah, she sees an Ototaro sword. She's gonna get the fuck out of there. So like I like how like with my other point of like Erickson writing the world when kind of like the way that the ring is in Lord of the Rings, like is put into like fruition here as well, where she like you're not just fighting a storm, you're fighting a goddess, and you have to be smart about these things. And I also think that the image of like this crazy storm just like silencing to nothing is a really really cool image. It looks really cool in my brain.
I would 100% agree with that image. Yeah, and you could see it. It reminds me of the first Mummy movie, where like he just
Yeah,
disappears in sand,
yeah,
because
yeah,
he
yeah.
can't do anything, right? Like he's stuck in that moment, so he's gonna collect himself to regroup, and that's exactly what I imagined. So
Yeah, I liked it too. And just to take your thought a little further, it didn't hit me. It was when I finished the chapter, I just kind of was like, oh crap. This feels like a trap to me, Justin. Feels like a trap. You're going to get the army in. Tavor's going to bring her, they're going to get their soldiers in. They're going to look for Corbolo Dom, right?
mhm.
Oh, I hate him. I forgot.
I,
I didn't. When I was like putting my comments in here, I completely brushed over the fact that like Corbolo Dom is mentioned in here, and he literally makes my skin crawl. I can't. He is out of every character in all of Malazan. I hate him the most.
more
Um,
than more than Bidethal?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Because the thing about Corbolo Dom, in my opinion, sorry, I did not mean to interrupt your thought. I just like it was like a visceral like gut reaction when I heard his name. The thing about Corbolo Dom is that this man is too stupid to be alive. He is far too dumb to still be living by sheer luck, while so many of my other favorite characters, far smarter than him, or even the villains, far smarter than him, are all dead. Like it just like makes me so mad that he gets off by the skin of his teeth every time, and he has the audacity to be this dumb and stupid and still be alive. Like he just I hate his guts. I
Wow.
hate his guts. He makes me so mad.
Sounds like a pretty good representation of life, though. There's so many
It
stupid
does.
people
And
out there that like just
yeah,
keep getting lucky for whatever fucking reason, and like
he's a
I'm
very
here.
good
Yeah.
example of how bad people thrive. He's a really good example of that. And it just makes me so mad because I like there are obviously other like villains in this series that have done things worse. There are people in this series that have done like terrible things and awful things and everything. But they're at least intelligent. They're at least like smart about what they do, or they have a purpose to like whatever they're doing. Like Carvel Adam is just he's just an idiot. He's just an idiot that gets by because of the people that he knows and his position. And he's in this position of power that just gets him out of everything, even though he does everything wrong. And he still gets off by like I said, like the skin of his teeth. It just makes me so mad that he is this dumb and still alive. And not like, and that's not me criticizing Ericsson's like way of writing him. Like I'm meant to think like this, and like at least I think so. I think I'm meant to think of Corbelo Dom this way as like a really stupid man, but But and I think he's written brilliantly. I love like hating his character, but he does like the mere mention of his name like sets. Ugh, it just makes me so bad.
Well, I think you kind of hit it on the head there. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean to like. I totally derailed your thought. I'm so sorry.
You're good. No, I've been thinking about this like since it popped into my head, and just like to me, this feels like a trap, Justin. What did we hear earlier in this book? You can't get like too far ahead of yourself. I don't remember exactly how they worded it, but you can't slaughter before you have victory.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, maybe what's going to happen is that kind of mentality. So what I'm wondering what might happen is we're going to get the adjuncts army into the heart of the desert, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that sandstorm's going back up and they're trapped in there.
So they can't get out.
Right.
Kind of reminiscent to when Tavor was younger, right? And she was looking at those battle plans from Kaessen or whatever it was. Remember
Whatever
how
it
fellas,
was.
we got that like flashback at the beginning of, I think it was like chapter 20 of fellas in her new dress was spying on Tavor, recreating some battle that historians had thought unwinnable because they were trapped.
I guess I didn't think about that aspect of it, but just yeah, I don't know. That's just my, I guess, kind of fear is that they're being lured in.
Mm-hmm. But I think this is where, at the end, when Gamet, and it's no real big surprise, I didn't really have any thoughts at the very last section anyway, but when Gamet essentially says, you know what, we'll just use Renal's, we'll just continue to do it, right? He didn't undo it. He rescinded the chain of command like Kaneb is, he restored proper order or hierarchy, but he didn't change it up. And I think that this is Gamet recognizing his worth.
I don't know. I think to me, it's just, I wonder like if it's more where Corvolo Dam is going to assume to know the strategy that they're going to have. How are they going to form their troops up? Well, now you just threw a wrench in that plan because you've got all these other self-contained groups that, you got a little bit of everything in. It's not going to be what he thought it was going to be, and maybe that's going to be enough to turn the tide of the battle too. I don't know.
Yeah, instead of everybody being trapped.
Well, I mean, they're still trapped, I guess. If
right,
that
but they're
were to
not
happen,
like with the main army. There's smaller contingent groups, right? That like could go in, help, push back, go in, help, push back. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they could still fight independently, but together.
right.
I guess.
Which is going to allow them to flank, right? It's going to allow them to be more movable on the chessboard, so to speak.
Yeah, that was kind of my theory.
All right. Well, I would imagine that that's probably right. I would agree with that. I don't have anything to argue against. This next thought about how Gamet is thinking like, oh, this is adjunct versus Shaik is really nothing more than a clash of wills, right? And it's 100% true. Like, adjunct is a representation of the scene, and Shaik is a representation of the whirlwind goddess / Talani Mass. It's just kind of interesting that they're the face to the wills, but they're not necessarily the wills themselves.
I've got nothing to add for you.
Fair enough. This part where Blistig added that Adjunct Tavor has made this war personal, ignoring Malazan doctrine. It seems a little hot iron to me. And then is there maybe something that we don't know that maybe Tavor is knowing? Kind of going back to Francisca, what you were saying about how nobody knows what her strategy is, right? And Gamet kind of being the only closest person would be able to share that with his legion or with the army, but because he doesn't want to, Blistig and Tene are like, hey, like, we need to know what's going on, so like you need to get back in there, blah 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 blah.
Well, I actually have a comment. I mean, I think in a later section about Tavari that kind of touches on this a little bit, where like Tavari is really this big question mark. Nobody knows what's going on in her brain. Like we don't get a POV from her or anything like that. We are just as much in the dark as the rest of her soldiers about what she is thinking, what she is working towards, what does she know, what doesn't she know, and she doesn't share that with anybody. And so you have to wonder to yourself, what does she know? Like, is she two steps ahead of everybody, or is she just making it up as she goes? And it's really hard to imagine that she's making it up as she goes because every decision that she makes seems like something that she's planned, and you just don't see it until she's actually made that decision. So she's such an interesting character. I love reading about her. Yeah, more to like your point here, where like you were saying that's like a battle of wills and everything. Well, like, what doesn't she know? Well, she doesn't know about her sister. And that's a huge thing. That's a huge matzo ball. That's just like hanging out there. Nobody knows. So like you talk about, like Shaik versus Tabaret, but like who is Shaik currently? So it's just like, it's just like it is it makes you nervous for what's to come, and it makes you like question Tabaret as well, because when he says this is personal, like, oh, you have no idea how personal it is. Like, she doesn't know how personal it is. She's taking it personally, but she herself has absolutely no clue just how personal this has all become. So it's just there's a lot of subtext in this section of the chapter where Erickson is really asking you to read in between those lines, because there's a lot more that Erickson is writing in the subtext than he is in the actual text.
Right. Well, and even this part where Gamet like almost kind of like affirms Blistig's speculation about Tabor making this personal, because like inside his head he's like, oh, personal. I remember that she's always conducted herself that way. And then he says to them that Lucine wouldn't have picked her if she hadn't known that like this was her personality. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, you're right. She definitely doesn't know how personal it's going to get. But also, what in this current moment is she taking personal?
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, the whole not having a POV from her, not really getting her thoughts, even just from like a third party's perspective, like really, really gives me the ooky feeling in my stomach.
She has the same vibe as Lucine, which I find interesting because she's the adjunct. She's like the right hand person to Lucine, because we never get like, at least in this book, or however you guys have read so far, that you don't get a POV from Lucine either. And you're constantly wondering, is she making it up as she goes along? Is she like two steps ahead of everybody? Like their vibes are very similar, in my opinion. But we just get more of Tabaret than we do of Lucine.
Interesting. I didn't think of that. Any thoughts, Derek? Awfully quiet over there.
Nothing to add. Just soaking it in.
All right. Last thought is I can't quite put my finger on it. What exactly Blistig said that made Gamet kind of change his mind about coming back to being the High Fist, but I'm glad that he did. And the grin that he had on his face as he was getting back up after being punched kind of like, I don't know, reaffirms that Gamet did the right thing. And I think that we would all agree he did the right thing, but I can't quite pinpoint what Blistig said in their conversation that like made him go, maybe it was this whole part about what a High Fist is supposed to do. And he's just kind of like the project manager, right? Like, you can't organize an army when you're running into battle, and now everyone's looking to save your ass instead of you just saving theirs, by seeing the battlefield. So I don't know if like that was just a perspective that Gamet didn't think of before, or I mean, we obviously know he's not experienced because it's been a minute since he's been a soldier, and even when he was a soldier, he was probably not that high ranking. So it's just That's what I have in my head as the turning point, but like I can't definitively say if it's. I mean, it could have been anything, really.
So I think when you are in the midst of this like self-pitying, self-deprecating kind of mindset, you're sitting there blaming yourself constantly, but everyone else around you is saying, it's not your fault. You did the best you could. And Blistig is the first person to come up to him and say, listen, you done fucked up real bad. And yeah, it's your fault. So get up and do your job and do it better this time. Basically, like confirming his thoughts and validating them and saying, like, you did this, you ran into battle when you shouldn't have because now everybody is worrying about you. That's not something you should have done. And he's been thinking about that the entire time, but no one's actually said it to him. And now that someone is actually saying it to him, he's like, how dare you? I can do better. Like, how dare you say that to me? And punches him. And then he finally gets like this like rejuvenated, like, I can do this and I can do better and becomes fist again. So some like it's just kind of like this reverse psychology type of thing where you're sitting alone with your thoughts for far too long and you're just mirroring them to yourself. You're in an echo chamber. And then you get out of that room and somebody actually confirms it to you and actually says it to you. It changes your mindset a little bit to where you're like, I don't want you to think that about me though. It's okay if I think that about myself, but you can't think about that to me. And so it becomes more of like a like I'll prove you wrong kind of mindset instead of being like self-pitying, which is how I read it. And I really enjoy that scene. I think it's a great scene.
I think for me, it felt like he was appealing to his, like, be that common soldier. Don't worry about that other stuff. Just be the voice for everybody else. Because if you're afraid of something, if you think something doesn't feel right, all the other soldiers probably feel that way too. But you are in a position where you can say something about it. Maybe you can change the tactics so that they don't feel nervous about XYZ, have a better outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, I don't have any other thoughts for that section, so appreciated the insight, y'all.
Ready for me to take my last one here?
Yeah.
All right.
It.
Strings and a few other sergeants had climbed up a hill while the rest of the camp was being packed and preparing for the march. They wanted a better view of the whirlwind wall coming down. Sheets of dust continued to rain as the wind ripped through them. Kessler said, not even a whimper. Strings said his guess was that the goddess withdrew and that the adjunct probably did not even draw her sword. Duke wondered why even raise the wall in the first place. Strings wasn't sure, but said there were other things taking place in Rariku that they didn't know about. The world sure didn't sit still during the months they spent marching here. Gessler said it was to keep the claw out. Both the Shaikh and goddess want this battle, and they want it clean. Soldier to soldier, mage to mage, commander to commander. Strings said it was too damn bad. Gessler told him to spit it out. Strings told him it was just a hunch, but from Bottle's divination he thought the whirlwind had been infiltrated, and the night before the battle in the oasis will be messy. He wished he could be there to see and to help. Gessler said they would have their turn to be busy. The last sergeant who joined them sighed and with a raspy voice said Moke didn't think they wouldn't be busy, or would be busy, probably what I meant, unless the new captain did something stupid. The adjunct is going to do something unexpected, so they may not fight at all. Strings asked Tug where Moke got all this information. Duke told him probably sitting on the toilet. Tug replied saying Moke knows things. Gessler asked how often he was wrong on those things. Tug said it was hard to say. The man knew so many things that he can't remember them all, but he has been right plenty of times, he thought. He was sure of it, in fact. Almost sure. Tug faced Strings and said Moke said he was in One Arm's host, and that the Empress wanted his head on a spike because he had been outlawed, and that him and Stormy are old guard, underage Marines serving Dassam Ultor or one of the Crust brothers, and that they had brought the Quandroman into Aran Harbor with all the wounded from the chain of dogs, and that Borduk had once thrown a nobleman off a cliff near Karashimesh, but they couldn't prove it. The men just looked at Tug and said nothing. Tug spoke again and said that's what Moke said anyways. Gessler said it was amazing how wrong he got it all. String said he assumed he was spreading these tales around. Tug said no, just to him and Sov alone, and Moke told him to keep their mouths shut about it. Obviously not with him though, since he already knew everything. He was just making friendly conversation. It was amazing how that whirlwind wall just collapsed, wasn't it? There was a horn blown in the distance. Gessler said it was time to march. Praise Hood.
Yeah, no, I just like once again, I just think that it's such a cool image. Like they wanted a better view of the whirlwind, and they are like describing it and everything, and not even a whimper. It's so cool. I just think it's so cool, especially when like living in Arizona and we get the massive haboobs, and it literally just looks like that scene in The Mummy, just like dust going all across the city, and it's just really really cool image in my brain. I just think it's really cool. And I touched on this before. I just like Cabaret, just like when they say that, is she gonna do something so unexpected that they may not fight at all? It is such you think about that sentence and you're like, okay, well, if I combine what I know with Erickson, where he likes to subvert my expectations, where I think there's this big battle that's going to happen, but then it doesn't happen, but then maybe it might happen. But is she does she know what's going to happen, or is she like planning it? Like you just like so many different scenarios are running through your brain about what could possibly happen. And honestly, it just all surrounds Cabaret and what she is going to decide to do, and depending on that is what it's going to happen, and you don't know what's going to happen because she doesn't say anything. So you just like it's just she's such a great character to follow. She makes me question everything. And then I really enjoyed the scene where Moke is talking about their past, and they're literally like they're all silent, and then you just like cue the camera looking at the camera like The Office, like what? I just thought it was a great like little levity there at the end. Yeah.
Before he just goes into this big like rant about all this stuff, like all these rumors and
yeah.
Do you think that affirms our subversion, or do you think that is a I guess more or less, do we think that these things that Tug is saying are true? I mean, I feel like they're rooted in truth, but there's a couple that we don't really know. Francisca, but I don't.
I think the way you worded it is good, Justin. Rooted in truth, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really know what to think of this.
Marines get some things right. They get some things right, but a lot of the times they're pretty wrong.
And there is a fair amount of speculation throughout this entire chapter.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The soldiers just keep talking.
Yeah.
That's all they can do right now is march and talk.
But I feel like Erickson does this where like he gives us like a very straightforward, like you're not thinking a ton, but like as you dig deeper into something that maybe shouldn't have been dug deeper into, and then everything after that is just devastation and chaos and blah.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost, this chapter almost feels like the calm before the storm.
Mm-hmm.
Or eye of the storm, right? Which maybe alludes to your trapped theory. They're trapped in the eye of the storm, nowhere to go, but obviously there's some changes being made. The Marines are talking, about events within and events without. And yeah, so I'm curious as to where this is going to go. And I'm excited to read chapter 23 now. So only 4 left.
Sounds good. Well, I don't have anything else on my last section here. Anything else you guys want to talk about there before moving on?
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
right.
I'll wrap it up like a wall of sand crumbling down.
Well, good luck.
Thanks. Section 5, last section here. Keneb rode up alongside Gamet. Their legion had been positioned at the rear. Keneb said that he wondered if the whirlwind would ever vanish. Gamet said that this was right, as there was more coming down than they were kicking up. Gamet apologized because he didn't say captain. Keneb admits that he's relieved, not just because he's no longer Fist, but because Renal's promotion was taken away. Keneb admits that it was a pleasure to tell Renal that news. He asked Gamet if he knew that Renal had reordered the units, using Greymane's arrangements. Apparently, he thought they needed self-containing fighting units as a sort of contingency plan. The irritating part, though, was that Renal didn't tell anybody. Gamet asked if he would return the squads to their original placements. Keneb said not yet, as he was awaiting word. Gamet thought about it for a second and said that he would consult the adjunct of the new formation. Keneb was confused by this, and Gamet told the man that it could prove useful as they are to hold the rear on a broken landscape. Renal's call, even though it was made of ignorance, may prove to be suitable. Keneb sighed, and Gamet understood what that meant. He thought to himself that she may have allowed him back in command, but her call to have him in the rear made him wonder if Tavor had lost confidence in him. They rode in silence, but it was not comfortable. So I think that the majority of this chapter is kind of a culmination to this point. This is where it's almost like a recap of the entire chapter and the minor events that took place being elaborated here or confirmed is all that I really took from this section.
I think for me, the big thing is just reordering the units or squads or whatever, leaving them intermingled or whatever terminology you want to use for that.
Mhm.
I think that'll be something that Corvolo Dom is not going to anticipate, and it's going to mess with whatever battle plans he's got set.
Right. He's expecting them to all be in Malazan military fashion because he was once Malazan. But now that you have all of these squads intermixed or intermingled with each other, you almost have your own miniature version of an army in different clumps all over the place, right? So like heavy infantry was always organized together. Infantry was always organized together. The Marines were always organized together, and each group has its own facet within the army. But now you're intermingling that, and now you have smaller groups that all can do the same thing.
Should be interesting to see what happens here. And again, yeah, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here, running out of pages. So whatever's going to happen's got to happen pretty soon.
That's right. Yeah, I always hate this part of the book is like I'm always on the edge of my seat, but I have to wait to record, wait to summarize. I get to like stew in it.
Yeah, well, I will say that the ending to this one is wild. It is wild.
Okay.
Just leaving us in anticipation then.
Yeah. I can't say I there's so many parts in this chapter where I'm like, holy moly foreshadowing. Holy moly foreshadowing. Oh my gosh. They're giving it to you right there. And I had to hold back.
Damn it.
And I had to be like, I haven't read the books. You can't comment on that. You can't say that. But trust me, there's a lot of clues to what's going to happen. It is like reading this chapter over, especially, I was like, whew, I did not see that. I didn't see it. I didn't see it until I see it now that I've read the whole book and everything. And also it's funny how, like I was saying before, that like since I've read all of the books, it's interesting how I can take information from like the other books and apply it to this chapter is going on, like especially with the like with Greymane and how they took his like strategies and like broke up the army into like smaller groups and stuff like that. And that is the like with Malazan Book of the Fallen, Erickson, the Marines are his babies, right? Like that's who he writes about. But with Ice, it's the Crimson Guard. The Crimson Guard are his children. And so it's really cool to see how they're implementing Greymane's like strategies and stuff because the Crimson Guard is a lot smaller. And so it makes sense, like how his arrangements would work in those books and how it's kind of weird here in the Malazan army. But they're like saying like, oh, but this might work. So like it's very interesting. I think it's cool.
I would imagine. Okay. Well, I was just saying, it must be kind of fun for you knowing what you know, watching us either try to struggle to put things together, and maybe some of the stuff we get right, or we're just way off base, and you're just,
Yeah, I have to be
you know,
quiet
yeah.
because I'm like, no, you're wrong. Oh, you're kind of or like, oh, you're a little bit on the nose with that. That's a good job, but I have to like, I can't say anything because this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to theorize. You're supposed to have fun with it. You're supposed to, you know. So all of the thoughts that you're having the right thoughts and everything. Some of them are super wrong. Some of and some of them are good job. You'll see.
Fair enough.
It's fun for us. It makes it fun for us to even just like, whether we're right or wrong, you know, just to get that kind of feedback.
Yeah.
No, Justin, go ahead. I'll show
Oh, I
up
was
now.
just, it's something I've said a million times on this podcast, and that's, I'm excited for when like I can reread the series. I've even thought about just starting now, but I would catch up to us in 3 weeks, you know. I feel like I need to let us get a little bit further into the series before I start my reread. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. I know, like when I reread this chapter this morning, I glanced at the next page, so I know we've got Absalar and Crocus in chapter 23. I don't know. Beyond that, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I don't feel like we're probably going to get the battle in the next chapter, but I mean, who knows?
You never know
No.
with Erickson.
Yeah.
It can happen in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
imagine that yeah, it'll be Cutter and Apsalar hanging out with Poost and then eventually making their way out. Pearl and Mustara, they're probably going somewhere. They're all in Raraku.
Oh, I forgot Pearl and Lestara were in this book. Oh, I love that.
Yep. And they totally did the horizontal mambo out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, I was like, yeah. I was so happy about that. I love them. I think they're great.
Yeah. yes, they are great.
I really love Pearl. I think he's a great character. I also really like Lestara, but I just think the pair are just great together. I like their chemistry.
I have a question, Francesca. So, House of Chains, where does that book rank for you compared to the other ones?
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, so it's actually pretty low. But not like in the sense that I did not enjoy it, because I can't compare Malazan to any other fantasy series because that's just not fair. Because every single Malazan book, in my opinion, is top tier to like any other fantasy book that I've read. So like even House of Chains, that is quite low on my ranking list, is still one of the best fantasy books that I've read if I would compare it to other books that I've read. But when comparing it to Malazan as a whole, I believe I ranked it like, I want to say number 8 or 9, like almost at the bottom. Not just because I don't think it was because I didn't enjoy it. I did. I think it was just a little bit slower paced than the other Malazan books that I had read. Also, it was paced different. Like with the very beginning being just Parsa, like a single POV. Like I remember starting that and going, "Who wrote this? I this is surely not Erickson who's writing this, because we're in a single POV for like so many pages. That's insane. That's crazy. I'm so used to like going through all of my other POVs and stuff. So this felt like a very experimental book for Erickson because it was paced differently, it was written differently. Also, I feel like the themes in House of Chains are more of an emotional arc rather than a physical arc. And there's nothing wrong with that or anything. I think that Erickson's other books are able to blend the two a little bit better than in House of Chains. But like I said, I've read House of Chains once. So I would assume that once I finally get to House of Chains again in my reread, it might rank a little bit higher because maybe there are things in there that I didn't understand fully or didn't recognize completely from the other books, or the foreshadowing parts, especially like when I was rereading chapter 22. I'm like, there's so much foreshadowing in here. It's crazy. So it was quite low, but I still very much loved it. There are still scenes in this book that I adore. And the fact that this book alone ranks high in my heart for Karsa alone. just his arc. One of the best I've ever read in my entire life. So yeah, sorry, that was like a very long-winded way of me saying that it
That's
ranks
okay.
low compared to the other Malazan books, but comparatively to other books that I've read in the fantasy genre. Fantastic book. Fantastic.
Well, did you hear why he started this book off the way he did?
I think I read an article somewhere about it, but I don't quite remember. I do remember him saying that he couldn't introduce Karsa any later than this book. That he had to introduce him in this book, and also he had to write like this huge article about why he wrote Karsa the way he was in the beginning of the novel. Because in the beginning, I mean, the man is a very hard character to read in the beginning of the novel, which is what makes his arc so outstanding and brilliant. Because by the end of the like time you're at this point in the novel, you're like, witness. Like you are just like pumping your fist in the air for this man, which is insane considering where he came from. It's wild how Erickson is able to do that. But I do know that he wrote like a big massive article, and I did read it, but it was quite a while ago, so I don't quite remember exactly like the wording of what he said. But yeah, I know that there was like this big like, we need you to answer some questions about this character and why.
I heard, I don't remember who told us, but it was someone gave him very harsh critique that he couldn't write a singular POV to save his life. So then when he wrote House of Chains, the whole first book is one POV.
Yeah.
Kind of like putting that to rest, you know, like a very spite thing. So
I feel like that was Lee or Mora that told us that, but I could be wrong.
I think so. Yeah. So, all right. Lovely discussion. I'm excited to read chapter 23. And in fact, that is probably what I will start doing as soon as we're done.
I'll probably start too, but we are going to play bingo for guns in a couple hours. So
Have fun.
yeah. I'll see how far I get. Yeah.
Well, Francisca, thank you for joining us again. It was lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoy coming back.
Yeah, it was great to catch up with you again and talk to you again and just talk some Malazan and get another perspective for us. I think it was good. It's, to me, it's kind of crazy that, you know, you say this, well, we know this was a pretty short chapter, but you know, you're saying how much foreshadowing there is, and it'll be kind of fun to look back on it, you know, when we get some more of that knowledge and we're like, oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys later and talk next time.
Bye.
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 DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic DMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest.